But the news was just announced that WNBA TV ratings are down more than 50% since Caitlin Clark's injury. And it was also reported that the Indiana Fever television viewership is also down over 53%. Now, I know a lot of us were expecting some sort of dip since Caitlin Clark has been out with injury, but I don't think all of us were expecting the entire viewership of the entire WNBA.
The sports world just watched a spectacle turn into a nightmare. A league that had limped along for decades suddenly found itself under the brightest lights imaginable. Crowds roared. Ratings didn't just rise, they exploded. Arenas were electric, jammed with fans, celebrities, and cameras from every corner of the globe. It felt like a revolution, but just as fast as it came, it vanished. The cheers turned to a haunting silence, viewers disappeared, energy drained. Packed arenas became hollow echoes. This wasn't a dip, it was a total collapse, leaving one chilling question behind. Was the WNBA's glittering rise resting entirely on the fragile shoulders of a single 22-year-old rookie? And did the league simply watch its golden goose get burned, exposing an ugly truth they tried to hide all along?
Is there any chance that the WNBA, that Kathy Engelbert saw some of the ratings that I'm about to show you now and said, hey, Indiana Fever, can you do us a favor? Can you do us a solid? Can you just tease a Caitlin Clark return, kind of boost these up a little bit? Can you just dangle a Caitlin Clark return in front of the fans' faces, try to boost these ratings up a little bit? There was one matchup that this league can consistently rely on to produce massive viewership numbers.
For a brief, blazing moment, the WNBA ruled the spotlight. They called it the Caitlin Clark effect. A tidal wave of hype and momentum that carried the league higher than it had ever been. Before Clark, getting a game on a major network was a battle. After she arrived, her matchups became must-see prime time on ESPN and ABC, pulling numbers that rivaled established men's sports. We're talking 2, 3, even 4 million viewers for regular season games. Numbers that sounded like fantasy just a year ago, and it wasn't just TV, on the ground. The change was even more dramatic. The Indiana Fever, once playing to half-empty stands, suddenly became the hottest ticket in America.
A shocker. Imagine my surprise. Just imagine my surprise when Uncle Casey found out that the WNBA is struggling to maintain their ratings without Caitlin Clark. To make matters worse, and this is something I have definitely noticed in the last 3 or 4 weeks, especially since the All-Star game, the WNBA seems to be struggling to maintain interest.
Teams started moving their home games against the Fever to massive NBA arenas just to keep up with demand, and still, tickets sold out in minutes. Her jersey? It became the top seller across all sports the moment it dropped. The league was finally breaking through, pulling in casual fans who had never watched a women's game before. It felt unstoppable. It felt like the dawn of a dynasty, but in their victory lap. They forgot the golden rule. You guard your most valuable asset with everything you've got.
About Caitlin Clark, the operative word that comes to my mind is gratitude. There's an incredible level of gratitude that should be accorded to this young lady with what she did for the sport.
How was the attendance for Team USA in the Olympics? What would it have been like if Caitlin Clark was playing on that team? Remember the first game? Look at this right here. National broadcast viewership. What are we talking about here? 1,000, what is that? 1.219? Is that the number? And the game afterwards got 485,000. So the Fever and their game against the Minnesota Lynx was 1.219 million.
Then, Caitlin Clark went down with an injury and the dream shattered overnight. There was no slow fade. It was instant, brutal, devastating. Reports rolled in, each one more damning than the last. League-wide TV ratings plunged by a staggering 50%. The Indiana Fever, their crown jewel, saw their numbers sink by over 53%. Imagine a blockbuster film franchise losing half its audience in a single weekend. A commercial catastrophe. The once sold-out arenas returned to their old state. Seas of empty seats, the silence deafening, proof of how thin that boom really was.
Lucky stars. For the record ratings, Caitlin Clark is detonating, even if new fans are mostly white fans. It doesn't matter what color eyeballs are. But the other day, I must admit, it hit me like Katie Bell Henderson telling me that's enough. I told myself it's not racist for me to like Caitlin.
The casual fans, the millions who tuned in for the Caitlin Clark spectacle, vanished. When the main act left the stage, they didn't stick around, they flipped the channel. The league's meteoric rise was exposed for what it was, a fragile house of cards built on one player, and when that player fell, the whole structure collapsed. But the falling ratings and ghostly arenas, those were just symptoms. The real problem was festering far deeper in the league's own front office.
The WNBA has a problem, and that problem is Caitlin Clark not playing in WNBA games. Now, what all does this affect? The ratings are plummeting. Guys, there's ratings for a couple of these games that are eye-poppingly.
As the WNBA ship clearly started sinking, Commissioner Kathy Engelbert grabbed the mic and painted a picture of smooth sailing. In a string of eyebrow-raising interviews, she kept pushing a story of record growth and unstoppable momentum. This, in the very same week, reports confirmed a 50% ratings freefall. The disconnect was staggering. It wasn't just spin, it bordered on delusion. She became the magician of denial, waving shiny distractions while the stage behind her quietly burned.
It's not a trend that the WNBA is excited about. That's a trend that Kathy Engelbert would say, hey, Fever, hey, Lynn Dunn, hey, Kelly, hey, Amber, can you guys start dangling that Caitlin Clark return like you used to do? You know, before Caitlin Clark gave a statement and you guys were hands off. Can you guys, just string them along a little bit more? We want to get these ratings back up. We want to get these numbers back.
The refusal to face the crisis head-on didn't just frustrate fans, it enraged them. This wasn't seen as optimism, it came across as an insult to everyone's intelligence. The league looked like it was gaslighting its own audience, asking them to ignore what was happening right in front of their eyes. The message, weak, out-of-touch leadership with no grip on reality. While the commissioner floated in her make-believe success story, the players on court were left to deal with a harsh and dangerous truth.
Indiana, against the Chicago Sky, right after that game, they opened an investigation once again into the fans, where they found nothing, but the damage had already been done at that point. If some of these things happen just one time here and there, or there's one certain media personality who's just always saying these kind of things, then whatever. I feel like fans as a whole can be like, okay, whatever, this person is just a hater. But this is something that has happened over and over and over again, and over time, it starts chipping away at how much you're going to actually care and want to support an organization if they continue to do things like
Caitlin Clark's injury. It wasn't some random twist of fate for anyone paying attention. It felt like the inevitable result of a season-long campaign of unchecked physical punishment. From day one, she wasn't treated as the generational talent to build around. She was treated as a target to break, hip-checked, shoved, knocked to the ground off the ball, and hit with alarming force, and officials often turned a blind eye. It was as if there was a secret rule, swallow the whistle. When Clark's involved, the league had a gold mine on their hands, a player bringing in millions. Yet they let her get tossed around like a crash test dummy night after night.
Caitlin Clark thing, man, I mean, it's embarrassing. It is embarrassing what you guys have done. And then people are catching on to your tactics. You got the people on Twitter catching on to your tactics. Like, look at this right here. Look at this right here. They say ESPN didn't want to show the ratings were down from WNBA All-Star Game because Caitlin Clark did.
The negligence was staggering, and then came the Olympic roster snub. A decision that stunned the sports world. Leaving Clark off Team USA wasn't just a roster choice. It looked like politics, pure and simple. The old guard held the line, shutting out their biggest star. The message it sent was brutal. We don't need you, and we won't protect you. And just as the storm around that snub reached its peak, another shockwave hit.
Well, how about this? Pay us what you owe us. That looks like a ham sandwich and some Lay's tater chips right now. It's getting bad. I feel bad for Caitlin Clark. She come out and said on Sue Bird's podcast that she's feeling the pressure of not playing in these games. And that Fever Sky viewership fell off the map.
As the chaos surrounding Clark's injury and Olympic exile unfolded, a second bombshell dropped. Angel Reese, the bold, polarizing rookie from Chicago, suddenly walked away mid-season. And this wasn't some bench warmer. Reese was the other face of the WNBA's rookie class. Her rivalry with Clark, dating back to college, had fueled the league's biggest storyline. Her departure sent a clear signal. The cracks in the WNBA weren't isolated, they were structural.
News and some bad news for those who are fans of pretend basketball. For those who are desperate to see the WNBA succeed, even though this dump of a league can't seem to get the hell out of their own way. Now, the WNBA, they refer to these people as fans, but the rest of us, we prefer to call them the mainstream media.
Her exit painted a grim picture, a league so toxic, so high pressure. It was burning out its brightest stars before they even finished their first year. Reese's walkout shifted the conversation from the league failed Caitlin Clark to the league is failing its players in a matter of weeks. Both cornerstones of the WNBA's future had collapsed, one sidelined by injury born of negligence, the other driven away by a hostile culture with its star power in ruins and leadership still in denial. The tide began to turn. The fans were no longer patient.
You see, this is exactly what we were talking about. WNBA All-Star ratings are in for 2025, and it is down 40%. 40% from last year. That's bad. That is really bad. We already watched the ticket prices drop by more than 50% because Caitlin Clark was not playing. This is bad news for the WNBA.
And when the fans turned, they turned loud. This wasn't a quiet complaint. It was a full-blown digital riot. Social feeds, once flooded with highlight reels and glowing praise, became a wall of fury aimed at the league. Every WNBA post, no matter how harmless, was swarmed with outrage. Protect your players became the war cry. Viral fan-made clips showed foul after foul on Clark going unchecked. Memes of empty arenas and Kathy Engelbert fiddling while Rome burned flooded the timeline. Fans felt duped, betrayed, and they weren't letting it slide.
Oh, you guys are just trying to uplift one player. Oh, the league is more than one. I agree, the league is more than one player. It's more than one good basketball player. But is there more than one player that moves the tide? No.
They bought the tickets, the jerseys, the streaming passes. Fans poured in their time, their money, their hearts, believing they were part of something historic. Now, many feel duped, roped into supporting a league seemingly hellbent on self-sabotage. With a toxic mix of arrogance and mismanagement, the WNBA wasn't just losing casual viewers anymore. It was driving away its most loyal base, the very lifeblood it needed to survive. Viewership, revenue, and perhaps most importantly, goodwill, all bleeding out fast, for weeks. Powerhouse media allies like ESPN rode the Caitlin Clark wave, hyping her every highlight. Celebrating record-breaking viewership, they were part of the machine. But once the collapse hit, the truth became impossible to bury. Suddenly, those same shows were forced to cover a devastating 50% ratings nosedive. The same on-air personalities who had been hailing Clark as the league's savior now had to dissect its meltdown live. Awkwardly, the WNBA's PR engine sputtered in plain sight. The narrative spun out of their hands, a runaway train of bad press. Even their most loyal media partners had to turn critical or risk their own credibility. And while the headlines burned, the numbers told a harsher story. Before Clark's injury, Indiana Fever tickets were gold, nosebleeds going for hundreds, courtside seats for thousands, scalpers cashing in. Afterward, the market didn't cool, it froze solid. Tickets that once cost more than dinner were now cheaper than a stadium hot dog. Whole rows of premium seating sat untouched. What started as a resale bloodbath turned into a humiliating optics nightmare for the league. This wasn't confined to one team either. The Clark bump, that magic tide lifting ticket sales league-wide, evaporated overnight. Merch sales stalled. Sponsors who were lining up began pulling back. The WNBA's failure to protect its crown jewel created a full-on financial crisis. One that didn't just gut the season's profits but cast a long shadow over future TV and sponsorship deals. And here's the sting. The playbook for success was sitting right there in their own backyard. Ask yourself, what would the NBA do if a rookie with Clark's impact entered the league? They'd wrap them in velvet. Refs would get memos, no hard shots, protect the asset. Because the NBA gets it, the stars are the product, you don't. Let your billion-dollar draws get smashed like practice dummies. Look at how LeBron, Curry, the greats are handled, a culture of protection to keep them healthy and on the court. The WNBA? They did the opposite. They let their generational star take hit after hit, night after night, and stood by. That's not just mismanagement, that's malpractice. The success formula was already written and they ignored it, treating a once-in-a-generation player like a disposable prop in a demolition derby. This wasn't some freak mishap. It was a series of choices, and those choices have left the WNBA at the center of a crisis entirely of its own making. They were handed the lottery ticket, a star who made them the talk of the sports world, who brought millions of new eyes to their courts, and instead of building an empire, they burned the bridge. The 2024 WNBA season is now a cautionary tale, a golden moment squandered. The league had the world's attention. The question now, did they just tear that ticket up in front of everyone? And if they did, will they ever be trusted with another?